What's good? What's good? What's good, fam? Welcome back to the zone. Shout out to all of you that have been along for the journey and consistently come back to the channel. I truly appreciate it. And shout out to those of you that are new and decided to click on this video and get familiar with the Fictional Basketball League, or FBL for short. Now, I wanted to schedule these videos to be in tune with the regular NBA season. So as you know, we recently had the play-ins last week, and then this weekend we actually started off with the playoffs. But unfortunately for me, I've been bogged down with organizing a move. We had some unforeseen family circumstances that needed to be dealt with, work, as well as studying for a huge exam that I'm scheduled to take over the summer. So needless to say, I got a lot going on, so unfortunately I had a backlog of videos that I wanted to highlight, but at the same time I didn't have enough time to edit them, so it is what it is. But today I do want to set the stage for what will happen during the playoffs. I do fully intend to catch up to get us in lock with the playoff season, as well as the off season as well, so that we have a continuation. I do fully expect that this FBL will be a multi-season type of thing where we have a series of videos for one season, then we kick things off for next season in the fall. But I say that to say this. What we're going to do in today's episode is kind of going to be along the lines of what I've been doing the entire season. For those of you that are new, what I tried to do is highlight one of my teams in a given week, and then we highlight two other games that took place over the week, so you can get a feel for all of the teams as well as all of the players in the league. However, over the past couple of weeks, I haven't had a lot of good videos that I wanted to show because the games I played were mainly blowouts. And the way I picked the games was through a randomizer. So if that game was a blowout, I didn't feel like it was worthwhile to show you that game. But as you can see, we are 56-20 for the Lakers. We have 6 games that are left in the regular season. I would say 4 of which that I have concerns with. The Kings, it's a bit of hit and miss with them, but we'll tackle that as we move forward with this video. But what I fully intend to do is I intend to take the approach whereby I simulate the games. I do take a lot of time to set up the game plans and simulate the games. And if we get in the situation where we're close towards the fourth quarter, or maybe we're getting blown out in the first quarter, I will hop in and play the game so you can see my teammates as well as the other team and see how they get things going. And as you can see with the Mavs, we have a record of 44-33. Full disclosure, I probably only played 2 games with the Mavs over this season, mainly because a lot of the games that were good were against other teams that I control, like the Lakers and the Pelicans. So I didn't think that makes sense to have you watch those games unless it was like really interesting. But I remember I probably did that way back at the beginning of the season, so I didn't want to waste anybody's time there. And secondly, the randomizer selected the teams that I was going up against during the week. So as a result, there were a lot of games that I simply didn't have with the Mavs. And so finally we have the Pelicans, where we are 40-37. We are finally above 500. Our team chemistry is 59%, but we have 4 games out of the 5 which are going to be tough, 2 of which are the Spurs, and they really have been giving us the business pause over the past couple of games where we went against them. And the Suns are the Suns, and then as you know from my last video with the Rockets, that the 76ers are complete dogs. So I fully expect things to be very difficult for the Pelicans over the next 2 weeks, and this video is probably going to be more centered around them because they're on the cusp of making the playoffs. This was 2K21 or next gen 2K21 or 2K22. They'd probably be in the play-in, but unfortunately we do not have this in this game. So these next 2 weeks are going to be do or die for the Pelicans. And so if we take a look at the week standings, or the conference standings thus far out in the West, you'll see that the Lakers are currently first in the conference, and so we're 1 game or even a half a game above the Warriors. The Rockets are the current 3rd seed. The San Antonio Spurs are tied with the Mavericks for the 4th and 5th, but I think the San Antonio Spurs won. They won the game, the tiebreaker, and 2, they have 2 less losses compared to the Mavericks. Underneath the Mavs, we have the Phoenix Suns, who are 1 game behind the Mavericks, which is very concerning for me. So it's kind of do or die for them because they may be able to fall down in the rankings, unfortunately for the Mavs. So it's very important that they do well over the next 2 weeks and make sure that, or hope that, the Phoenix Suns kind of fall so they can secure their spot. Then we have the Timberwolves, who are after the Suns, and they're actually tied with the Suns at 43 and 33. And then we have the Kings, 41 and 34, and then the New Orleans Pelicans, as I mentioned before, at 40 and 37. So for the Pelicans to actually make it into the playoffs, there's a lot that has to go well for them. One, have to be flawless. As you can see, they're currently on a 3-game win streak, and that's without me playing. That was just straight simulations up until this point. But it's important for the Sacramento Kings to lose, so those games against the Mavs and the Lakers will have an impact on the Pelican standings. Then the Timberwolves have to either do poorly or take a win away from one of the teams above them. And as I mentioned before, the Pelicans will need to absolutely be flawless to actually get into the postseason. So hopefully over the course of this video, as well as the next, we'll be able to have something positive to show to get the Pelicans into the playoffs. But if not, at least we have 2 out of my 3 teams that actually did make it. So I hope you're buckled in, and I hope you enjoy the ride. So let's get into it. So it started off with the Mavericks going up against the Grizzlies, and we've had a pretty decent string against the Grizzlies, and they've had a pretty rough season. And so with this simulation, I fully expect things to go in our favor. And as you can see, sped up the simulation. We were pretty much dominating by the end of the second quarter, and by the end of the fourth, we won 125-79. So tip to the Mavericks for that win. And now we have the Sacramento Kings, who have given the Lakers some problems over the course of the season. So this game could go either way. Didn't have to jump into this one because the Lakers pretty much had their way with the Kings. The game ended up being 128-97. Led by Deion King on the Lakers side, whereby he had 33 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, shooting 11 for 19. Then Pablo Knox had a solid game with 19 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 7 for 10, 3 for 3 from beyond the arc. Gilbert had 16 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 7 for 12. Raphael had 13, 8, shooting, I believe, 6 for 16. So he had a pretty bad game, and then followed by Leo Yamasaki. Then on the Kings side, Herbert Humphreys led the way with 19 points, shooting 7 for 11 for the field. Carson Vaden had a solid game, followed by Brandon Jordan. Trey Franklin had a poor outing, shooting 4 for 14, and I think both Raphael gave Trey Franklin a problem and Trey gave Raphael a problem, but nonetheless, the Lakers got the win. Then the next game we had to show is the Mavericks versus the Nets, but the Nets have been at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, so I fully expected the Mavericks to make light work out of them. And as you can see from the simulations, the score ended up being 116-108. We kind of almost lost it in the fourth quarter, but that's mainly because of the second string. But now we have the Pelicans going up against the Spurs. And as I mentioned before, the Spurs have given us problems in the past. And as you can see, the game was fairly close with the Pelicans down by 8 points at the least. And at the end of the first quarter, we were down by 6. Towards the second, we were trying to make our way back. The score ended up getting closer, but we were still down by at least 7. Come the third, we actually got some momentum, and the game swung in our favor to where I felt comfortable thinking that we wouldn't have to hop into the game. But eventually, towards the fourth, the score was 81-83. So we jumped in. Joel Cousins passed the ball to Jeffrey Humphreys, who Miles has always had an issue with around the perimeter, but he took a wild shot. But Joel Cousins was able to get the putback in with the score, bringing the score to 81-85. Abe Price with the rock, trying to find an opening to get to the lane, but Zach Ellis Jr. with the good coverage gets the stop with Miles getting the rebound. He passes the rock to Lior Bay, who had a clean pass to the lane, but he didn't take the opportunity. But Miles is getting double teamed. He passes it to Zach Ellis Jr., who does a weird move, but he was able to get the layup to bring the score 83 to 85. And as you can see on the screen, he is 17th amongst the rookies from a scoring perspective, and I think 4th from a rebound perspective. But he gets a major stop, passes the rock to Miles, who hammers it down, bringing the score 85 to 85. So we have 8 minutes and 27 seconds left. Miles is on the perimeter trying to make sure Jeffrey Humphreys doesn't get by him, as he usually does. Leaves Abe Price wide open for the 3-ball, and the score is now 85 to 88. Miles got caught sleeping, although Axe tried to get the support on the outside, but it just wasn't enough. But now Axe trying to come back with the spin move. Nice layup. Hey! Scores 87 to 88. This is the type of energy we need from Axe all the time. Love to see it. So now fast forward, 7 minutes left in the quarter. Jeffrey Humphrey Jr. gets by Miles again, but didn't believe that was a foul on Miles, so we had to challenge that call. And if we take a look at the replay, we could see that 2K was actually holding your boy back. Miles, nowhere near Jeffrey. You see that? Didn't even touch the man until he dunked it. He did pat his head at the end, but I don't think that was a foul, though. Keep it a buck with you. Nonetheless, we get the call overturned, so the score is still 87 to 90. So now Axe is bringing up the rock. Miles now has the ball, spin move into the screen, gets the dunk. Hey, 89 to 90. So on the fast break, Miles tries to cover. They were able to get the stop. The RB gets the rebound, Miles gets the rebound, passes it to Axe, who takes the mid-range, misses it. Stephen Lee with the rebound. He brings it back out, gets fouled. Now Stephen Lee to the line, and the score is 89 to 90. So the first free throw, money. Score is 90 all. Second free throw, Stephen makes it again, bringing us to 91 to 90. Now typically I don't try to show free throw shots, mainly because they're free throw shots. That's not very interesting to watch from a highlight perspective. But since the game was so close, each and every point mattered very, very much. And so Miles is out on the perimeter. That green is mean. 3-point shot in the bank. The score is now 94 to 90. They should not have left Miles that wide open, but that's what we needed to get some space in the score. So Miles with a nice bounce pass to Axe. The chemistry is really live. Nice play between the duo, bringing the score 96 to 90. Joel Cousins misses the fadeaway. Miles with the rebound, passes it to Axe again, passes it back to Miles, goes for the dunk, and he is fouled. So the score is now 96 to 90 with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. This is what the Pelicans need to kind of get some space from a scoring perspective. So as you can see, Miles was able to green that shot, bring the score 97 to 90. Second chance, wasn't green, but still a mean shot, bringing the score 98 to 90 overall. So now Rex Knight, he has the rock. Miles is trying to be cautious on the perimeter, but Rex Knight is fouled by Lior Bay, and Lior is absolutely stunned. So now we need to make sure that we don't get any foolish plays like that, because as I mentioned before, every point counts at this point. And so the score is now 98 to 92. Miles is asking for the rock, waiting for the right moment, and he passes Axe the rock, and he's now waiting on the wing. So now Steve passes to Axe, who passes it to Zach, and Miles sees an opening. He cuts to the basket and gets the dunk. And with a little under 3 minutes left in the game, the Spurs are trying to fight back, bring the score 101 to 96, but Miles hit Jeffrey Humphrey Jr. with a half spin and brings the ball to the rack with ease. Nice dunk on Miles's part. Jeffrey, you need to guard up very quickly. But Spencer, he's trying to win the game. He comes back, shoots a mid-range shot, bringing the score 103 to 98. So with a minute left in the game, the Spurs are down by 5 points. Axe misses a wild shot, and the Spurs are really trying to get back in this game, but Rex Knight does not have it in his bag. He misses the shot. Spencer tries to get a layup. He's contested by both Axe and Miles, who are trying to seal the deal. And Miles with the dagger. This game is officially over. 105-98, and still the Savages on the court. Miles and Axe together get one more bucket, bring the score 107-98, and that is a wrap. The team was able to beat the Spurs, a team that has been a thorn in their side, and this is a win that the team desperately needed. Now, looking at the box score, this is why I had concern with the Pelicans going up against the Spurs. As you can see, it was a very close game, but Spencer Hwang had a monster game. He had a double-double, 24 points, 11 boards, 3 assists, 1 steal, shooting 11 for 18 from the field. He had 2 for 5 from the three-point line. Joel Cousins also had close to a double-double. He had 18 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, shooting 7 for 14, which is pretty good for him. And then Jeffrey Humphreys Jr., he had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, shooting 6 for 15, but he was horrible from beyond the arc, which is not like him. He usually has the burner on him, shooting 0 for 6 from beyond the arc. And then Abe Price with 13 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 1 steal, also shooting horribly, shooting 5 for 20. He's another person that usually gives the Pelicans a run for their money beyond the arc, with shooting 3 for 5 from beyond the arc. So Malik Ashley, he had a rough game, and I will note that Seth Gibbs is out, as well as Edmund Mack, who also has the burner on him. He's also out, both with injuries. So if these two were in the game, this game probably could have gone left, but fortunately for us, they were not in, and so we were able to get a much needed win against the Spurs. Now, looking at the Pelicans box score, we can see that Miles had a solid game, shooting 29 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, shooting 12 for 27, so he was a little under 500 from a shooting perspective, and 3 for 7 from beyond the arc. Axe had a really monster game, 26 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, shooting 9 for 17, 2 for 5 from beyond the arc, 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Michael Kent, who's been hit or miss over the course of the season, he had a decent game, shooting 14 points off the bench, but his splits were a bit suspect. From the field, he was shooting 4 for 11, from beyond the arc, 4 for 10. Stephen Lee, wish he would have been able to do much better, shooting 4 for 10 from the field, but Spencer Hwang was definitely giving him problems overall within the paint, but he did have a double-double, 12 points, 18 rebounds, and then followed by Lior Bay. Decent game, shooting 3 for 7. Mainly care about Lior and his ability to defend. Zach Ellis Jr., same thing, although he had 6 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 1 for 5, so his shooting splits were terrible. And unfortunately, Dario Floyd, who was supposed to be our guy off of the bench, he only shot 2 for 6, 5 points, 2 boards, 2 assists. But nonetheless, this is a win I will take any day because the Spurs are a problem. Now, next up, we have the Lakers going up against the Thunder, and I can't hold you. We've had a lot of issues with the Thunder over the course of the season, so I wanted to take the simulation nice and slow in case things got left very early in the game. But as you can see, the game started off very slow. We were neck and neck for the majority of the game, including the second quarter. I did speed things up a little bit just to see how things would go, and towards the end of the third, things were pretty much neck and neck, but the Lakers were still up ahead by at least 7 points. So I thought we probably had this in the bag, but unfortunately for me, I fumbled. I wasn't paying attention, and at the 3-minute mark, the Thunder actually overtook the Lakers, and at that point in time, it was too late for me to hop in, and so I had to take that L in blood. We lost by 5 points. I will say that Raphael tried his best with 26 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 10 for 22, 3 for 6 from the 3-point line. Deion King had 24 points, 11 boards, shooting 11 for 13. Leo Yamasaki shot 4 for 11, but he did get 13 points. Same with Pablo Knox, who I thought could have done better considering the game that he had last time. And then Gilbert only had 9 points, 10 boards. He had 3 assists, 3 steals, but he only shot 3 for 8. And so offensively, the team just wasn't where we needed it to be to get that win. And so that loss unfortunately hurt us. But next up, we have Pelicans versus the Suns, and I will admit that the Suns are a very solid team, and I had my concerns about playing up against them. And so this was another game that I wanted to take the simulation nice and slow. And as you can see off the rip, there were a lot of lead changes between the two teams. And by the end of the first quarter, we had a small advantage up against the Sun, and that's mainly tied to the second string. But then, as you can see, towards the second quarter, the Sun started coming back very quickly. And so the score between the two teams gradually decreased, although the Pelicans tried to hold their own. But still, I did not want to speed up the simulation because I just had lost the Lakers game as a result. So I was just trying to take things nice and slow. But ultimately, I felt like the Pelicans, if they held off for a little bit longer in the fourth quarter, that it would be enough for me to not be concerned and be able to jump in. But unfortunately, they were able to close out the game, winning by 12 points, which I'm very happy about. So I didn't have to hop in against this really solid team. But if we look at the box score, Miles had 29 points, shooting 13 for 22 from the field. Stephen Lee had 20 points, 15 boards, shooting 9 for 17. Axe had 17 points, but he had a so-so game, shooting only 7 out of 13. But the big surprise for me was Jimmy Taylor, who had 22 points. And I unfortunately forget which pick he was in the draft that I had prior to the season, but I was very surprised to see how many points he had in this game, because I remember at the beginning of the season he was actually playing a lot on the DMP list. So to see him go from not playing to being able to get a lot of minutes and a lot of points, I was very happy to see that. Chris Cross had 22 points, 10 assists. Kim Shafino had a solid game with 16 points as well. Shout out to YG the Beast, because Kim Shafino is one of his players. And so fast forward to the next game, where we have the Golden State Warriors up against the LA Lakers. This game is very important, or was very important, because as you know, the Lakers and the Warriors have been duking it out over the course of the season for the #1 spot in the West. And so, as with the Thunder game, try to take things very slowly, but in this game, the Lakers started off pretty strong, where we won the first 2 quarters, or won the first half essentially. But by the time we got into the third quarter, things went left very quickly, and that the Warriors started to dominate. And I found this to be the same trend as with the Thunder game, and that towards the third and the fourth quarter, the team actually collapsed. And I know we had an injury with Rich Green, so we're trying to backstop that injury. And so I'm wondering if I need to take a look at the rotation in preparation for the playoffs, because for the team to lose steam towards the fourth quarter, it's not very good. We need to close these games out. And as you can see, I had to hop in again because we were down 108 to 105. Now, fun fact, this is the first time Raphael is facing Kenji where I'm controlling Raphael, and Deion King's normally supposed to be on this matchup, but he's on the bench for some odd reason. But as you can see, Kenji has a lot of handles. His quick first step beats Raphael off of the break, and the score is now 110 to 105. Raphael drives to the paint but sees Pablo wide open, and Pablo misses an easy layup, misses it again, despite his height advantage over Danny Edwards. And now the Warriors are on the fast break. Raphael gets caught up on J.R. Griffin, and Kenji, fortunately for the Lakers, misses his 3-point shot. Now, Leo definitely missed the opportunity on the fast break, but he did have his eyes set on Pablo and noticed the mismatch, and Pablo is fouled as he tries to get a layup. So the score is now 110 to 105 with 2 shots at the free throw line. Pablo makes the first shot, and he also makes the second shot, bring the score to 110 to 107. Now we have Danny Edwards, who passes it to Bruce Sally, who gets rejected by Gilbert Hajiwara. And now we're on the fast break. Raphael passes it to Leo Yamasaki, who hammers it down, getting the score up to 109. Golden State's lead by 1 point with 26 seconds left in the game. So now J.R. Griffin has the rock. He's trying to sauce up both Raphael and Sheldon, but Sheldon unfortunately fouls J.R. Griffin, and J.R. is definitely a sniper from the free throw line, and he was able to bring the score back up to 3 points, 112 to 109 with 21 seconds left in the game. So now after the huddle, Lakers are trying to make a move. Gilbert gets by everybody and hammers it down in the paint, bring the score 112 to 111 with 18.7 seconds left. And so at this point, debating who should foul who on the Warriors. Do we foul Kenji Hall or do we foul J.R. Griffin? And ultimately, I decided we foul Kenji Hall. Hopefully we have enough time to score on the opposite end, but unfortunately it was GG's. We lost to the Golden State Warriors 114 to 111. So this loss is definitely a loss that hurt me very deeply because it's definitely a game we could have won, but unfortunately I just didn't make the right moves at the last second. So now if we look at the box score, Pablo actually had a solid game. He had 27 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals. He did have 4 turnovers, so those assists kind of were offset by the turnovers, but he did shoot 8 for 18, shooting 4 for 7 from the 3-point line and 7 for 7 from the free throw line. Gilbert had a double-double with 18 points, 19 boards, 3 assists, shooting 8 for 16. Deion King had a decent game as well, shooting 16 points, 4 boards, 6 assists, 5 for 9. But Raphael, he had a pretty bad game, and I know I contributed to that towards the end of the game where he shot 5 for 15. He had 14 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, but it just wasn't enough to cut it. Fortunately, Xander Underwood, he tried to do his thing with 11 points, shooting 4 for 9. Leo, he's been hit or miss throughout the entire season. He shot 40% from the field, 11 points, 4 boards, 1 assist, and 1 for 3 from beyond the arc. But then after that, there's a big drop in points. Sidney Frazier, 2 for 3. Wish he would get more buckets in the paint because we could use that kind of dominance, but at the same time, he didn't get much time in the field. And Sheldon Moss, who had 21 minutes, pretty much did nothing with it. So unfortunately, this was part of the reason why we didn't do as well as I would have hoped. Now, if we take a look at the Warriors box score, Kenji pretty much had his way with us. He had 36 points, 11 boards, shooting 11 for 21 from the field, although he did break all of his 3-point shots, but he was able to get 14 points from the free throw line. So ultimately, no one on our team could guard Kenji. He was that much of a problem. J.R. Griffin also had a decent game with 17 points, 2 boards, 6 assists, 1 steal, shooting 6 for 9. Although he had 4 turnovers, he shot 4 for 4 from the free throw line, which is why I was struggling to pick who should be fouled towards the end of the game. But either way, the results probably would have been the same. And then outside of that, we do have a few individuals from the Golden State Warriors, like Raheem York. He's not somebody that normally gets any play time on the team, but he had 15 points, 9 boards, almost a double-double, shooting 6 for 11 from the field, 3 for 5 from the 3-point line. And then Tony Popovich, who hasn't gotten a lot of burn as of lately. He was a starter at the beginning of the season. Now he's coming off the bench, and in some cases on the DNP list, but he had 14 points, shooting 5 for 10, 0 for 3 from beyond the arc, but 4 for 4 from the free throw line. So ultimately, our team had a lot of issues with fouls, but it is what it is. We had a good game, but unfortunately, we did not hold on to the game plan that we had in the first half to make sure that we close this game out. And so as you can see, for the week, we had 2 big L's, one to OKC, one to the Golden State Warriors. But we did beat the Kings, so hopefully we could finish out next week solid and kind of finalize the regular season. And hopefully we could be in a good position for the playoffs. Now, granted, even if we're not the first seed, being the second seed isn't the worst thing in the world, but I still want that home court advantage for the Lakers. Now let's fast forward and take a look at the Western Conference standings so you can see what I'm talking about. And so pretty much the 2 teams are tied for first, quote unquote, from a win perspective. But unfortunately, we had 2 losses against the Golden State Warriors. So essentially they have the tiebreak and they are currently the 1 seed. If we do well next week and maybe the Warriors do poorly next week as well, we might be lucky and get the 1 seed, but we still have a lot of games to play to determine that. But looking at the 3 and 4 slots, we see that the Houston Rockets have an edge over the Mavericks, mainly because they have 1 less loss than the Mavericks, but anything's possible. Either one of these 2 teams could either be the 3 or 4 seed, and also the San Antonio Spurs as well as the Timberwolves, they may be able to make a move next week to be able to take that slot as well. So the 3 through 6 seed is really up for grabs by anybody or any one of these 4 teams. But as we go further down into the conference, we have the Suns at the 7 seed, and we have the Kings at the 8 seed, followed by the Pelicans, who are now 9th. and things are very close. We're so close, but we're so far. As I mentioned before, if I were playing the latest version of 2K, we'd be in the play-in, but right now we're fighting for survival to see if we could even get in the playoffs. And I will admit, we are on a 5-game win streak, and that has, I don't want to say it's been attributed to the fact that KC Starks got injured, but ever since he got out due to the injury, our team has performed a lot better in that Axe has been more involved. We find a lot more playmaking between Zach Ellis Jr. as well as Michael Kent and a few others on the team. So it's definitely very interesting to see how well the Pelicans have performed. But if we keep this pace and we win the next 3 games next week, as well as hoping that the Lakers beat the Kings, as we saw, they do have a matchup against them next week. Hopefully there are some other changes between the Spurs and the Suns. We may get lucky and get into the playoffs, but like I said, it's do or die for the Pelicans and also for the Lakers if they're to be the 1 seed out in the West. But unfortunately, that is the end of this video. I know this was a different format compared to the other videos that we had, but I hope you enjoyed it because you got to see some gameplay from me as opposed to just seeing the CPU play. But as always, I enjoy making these vids. I hope you enjoy watching these vids. Leave a comment below letting me know what are some things you want to see as part of the playoffs. What are some things that would make this series better? Like I said, I truly appreciate those of you that have stuck with me from the very beginning of the season to this point, and I appreciate those of you that are new that watch this vid. Let me know what you think about this all. And before I wrap things up, I do want to give a shout out to YG the Beast. Kim Shafino is one of his players. Also want to shout out Hoodie Sean because Kenji Hall is one of his players. Both of their links are in the description below. Feel free to check them out. Let them know that we sent you over here from the Zone for Game Lovers. And ultimately, until the next video, I hope you all have a good one. I'll check you out later.